I want to make sure it was morning when I said good morning. I'm really touched that I was asked to do this. I am a veteran, but I want to talk about other people, not me. Although several people said, you got to tell the people something about you, okay? Well, there's a lot about me. I see the Masons are here. I have a son who's a Mason. So I have members of the Knights of Columbus here. I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus. So there are people of all ilks here. They've been here in places like this for the last 250 years. 250 years. Remember, our Revolutionary War didn't start in 1776. It started when a bunch of farmers, horsemen, and others stood their ground at a bridge in Massachusetts and gave their lives for a country that didn't exist, okay? So what do we have? I heard mention all the wars that our people have served in, but there are so many others, so many others. But more importantly, we as a nation will only survive if we can remember and memorialize those who have served before. It's hard for that to be understood. It's hard for that to be understood. Let me tell you a little bit about me. First of all, if you haven't read a book called Elegy of a Hillbilly, you need to read that book and find out that you can become one of the great leaders of this country from the hills of Kentucky and the Appalachia. Well, that's my history. And I tell people, because I want people to tell me, oh, well, you're the gifted. I said, gifted? My father went to 6th grade. My mother went to 5th grade, okay? My father went to war in 1943, the beginning of 1943. I was born at the end of 1942. He never saw me again for over 3.5 years when he went to North Africa and Italy and Europe before he came home, okay? When he came home, he and my mother, it took them a year to get enough money to buy a house. And they bought the house. They spent the rest of the time, I can remember, this is not stories, I remember as I got older, I watched them bring their paychecks home. Actually, they weren't checks, they were cash. On Friday afternoons and count the money out so they could pay for me to go to school. They sent me to a private Catholic school. They sent me then to a Catholic high school. It doesn't matter that it was a Catholic high school, it could have been any, but that's where they put their money. They put their money there. They didn't know how to get me into college or even I should go to college. But I had a good nun and several good Augustinians. Oh yes, by the way, our Pope of the Catholic Church, an Augustinian, as I was educated by the Augustinians out of Villanova. I have 3 sons that graduated from Villanova. I had a granddaughter yesterday receive her doctorate from Villanova. Where I'm going with this is, I got where I was because I had parents that cared enough about me to move me on. I was able to get the Navy ROTC scholarship, and I was going to go to Villanova. Seems reasonable. I was taught by the Augustinians. The Navy sent me a letter and said, no, we're going to send you to the University of Pennsylvania. That's that school downtown, okay? Not the one up in the middle of the state. In the 4 years I was there, which was near the height of the Vietnam conflict, I also experienced some of the things that happen today to our veterans and to people. As I said, I don't have to create stories. Some of my sailors used to say, Captain, how did you do that? I said, I just was me. And the one I tell about when I was at Penn was, for those that are old enough, the Eagles, that's the football team, Okay. They used to perform at Franklin Field. That's the Penn Stadium. That was their home field before they ever went anyplace else. Well, the honor guard to go in there was the honor guard from our ROTSA unit. So one Sunday afternoon, as we marched from our building to there was a large group of students who did not want us to be in the Vietnam War. And that's their privilege. But then when they started to get in our way with our flag going in, we brought our ancient rifles, but with real bayonets down, and they decided, geez, that would hurt if he hit us with one of those. And so we finally got in the presentation. Well, that was true while I was at Penn. Fast forward about 8 years, I was at a wedding in New York City at a place called, actually, it was called one name, but what was important was there was a school called Columbia. Columbia, I think you've heard of Columbia. Well, we went from the wedding to the reception by walking across the campus of Columbia. Well, there were 4 of us, all in uniform. And by the time we got to the middle of the Columbia campus, we started to get spit upon. Our wives and us. What was our wives doing wrong? What were we doing wrong? We were serving the country. We were at the wedding of one of our shipmates. Okay? The nation still has things like that happening. So when people think that it's all happening today, no, it's been happening. When it's peaceful and when it's a demonstration, that's what our freedoms bring us. When you want to hurt people, injure people, and destroy people, that's not the benefit that our veterans want to experience. So let me talk a little bit about that without, that's me. I've had really the privilege of commanding 2 major U.S. Navy ships. I commanded the Sea Devil, which I have on, which was a fast attack submarine. And during my time in command of almost 4 years, the ship was able to earn the Navy Unit Citation and several other prestigious awards for operations in the Mediterranean. Well, that was the ship and what my people. But when we came back to the United States, what I would hear from my sailors was, hey, they didn't like us. Why didn't they like us, Captain? I said, because they're ignorant. Ignorant is the word. But let's go back to the end of World War II, where it didn't change. As I said, my father didn't see me for 3.5 years after I was born. But by 1948, the little town, or the little part of Upper Darby Township in Delco, yeah, I'm a Delco boy, had no memorial to the veterans. None. 0. And so a bunch of men at the Memorial Day parade, and it was 48 or 49, marched in the parade with a huge American flag, and they asked people to contribute to building the memorial. They got enough money thrown in that flag that today, 50 years later, 60 years later, that memorial still sits on the corner of one of the intersections in Fernwood, Upper Darby Township. You have the privilege of seeing the beautiful memorial you have here, and you should be grateful to the people that made this happen. And most importantly, to the veterans that these memorials honor. And when you do that, what I ask is that you talk to your young people, and there are a lot of people. My wife likes to tell people we have 9 children, 19 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren. And so, I want them to all succeed. And what I want them to realize is the military is an honorable profession, okay? And we, the people on the sidelines, every organization should be honoring the fact that we have a military that is renowned. and I'll only say it, and I always promise I will not get involved in politics, but I watched people at our base in Qatar with smiles on their face, and then I watched a picture about 2.5 years ago of a group of American servicemen with frowns on their face. We want the smiles, not the frowns, because they are serving this country with honor. And you, every one of you, whether you're a parent, an uncle, an organization, need to recognize that this nation only exists because of the strength of the people that have left these grounds to fight for this nation. And it will happen again. We're human beings. It's going to happen again. When I commanded the second Navy ship I commanded one of the Trident submarines. Well, the Trident carries 24 missiles, and I want to give you a part to my story. I was selected, the ship was, to conduct an exercise off of patrol where we were going to go from presidential order to missile in the air with telemetry warheads. I was deep in the middle of the Pacific Ocean when we got the launch order. 11 minutes after we got the launch order, the first of our Trident missiles was in the air. It traveled 4,000 miles in 24 minutes. It had multiple warheads, and every one of them landed in its impact area. We finished firing all four in a space of about 11 minutes. Strength through deterrence. That's what our services bring. Strength through deterrence. If you're going to go down the street and the guy on the other end has all kinds of bad things, and you walk down with a piece of paper and say, please don't do that, officer, or whatever, it ain't going to happen. And it's not going to happen with nations until we recognize by something like this, that I hope gets the publicity that it needs to get, is a memorial to those who have served and those who will serve, and will give us the freedom that this nation has earned for the last 251 years. Thank you very much.